맛이 당근데 상황을 쉬사다. 다양한 쉬비입니다. Mindfulness lemjusan에 ane 가르쳐 배는지 배는 아주지 에디 가르쳐디 배나 negative emotion 시험에 카돌리아 아주 삼리아 홉티칼리아 가르쳐지 치료기 가르쳐지 conditions cause conditions 디줄래야 댄체 루버도 컨트롤할 수 없어서 저래서 인비네 아주 mindfulness 제비입니다. 오늘 제비입니다. 아니 콜이미네 가르쳐야 Today emotional 중앙에 hope 갈 정보 많이 봐. 레안 different 가지고 step by step 정보 이만 아주 하고 와서. 근데 이제 때 뭐좀 권이야. 아주 3년 나눠리야. 가르쳐야지. 가르쳐 나온다. Notice. 그래서 좀 더 알았어. 인도산 디규제 때는 샘리아 tradition이 고급지요. 이거네. 근데 인도산 디규제 때는 mindfulness 하디 가르쳐야. 아주지 가르쳐야다. 아주 outside environment, clean environment, protect outside environment 제거나시 아주 낭심기 environment에 protect 제거하들이야. 들이야. 아니 mindfulness 하기 시작해 좀 잘 되어 정도스.
When we talk about mindfulness, then normally what we think about with mindfulness is that there's some situation where a big negative emotion all of a sudden happens, and at that moment we think, okay, amidst all of these external conditions, now we need to be mindful. But actually, mindfulness isn't really like that. It's not something that you do when all of those big emotions in that big situation happens all of a sudden, because it's hard to do.
That's okay. Continue that.
It's actually something that it's not just something that we need to do at that point. Beforehand, we need to actually be careful and notice what is happening within our minds. It means we have to prepare our minds. And so for that reason, when we think about mindfulness, it's like we need to protect the outside environment and make sure that the environment is clean and not polluted, and we need to take care of it. In the same way, we need to take care of the internal environment of our minds, and the way we do that is through mindfulness.
네, 주산에 mindfulness 주산에 소소의 assembly 내가 컨트롤이 받당 안다나시 니주 가르쳐요 받당 개치슈에 가르쳐는 아주 샘 나로리아 안에 가르쳐야지 개회 넘버도 봐 같이 용요 받당 미기회 넘버도 봐 같이 용요 받당 디주에 네 주산에 다 되게 하고 거야지 가르쳐야지 emotional 충분히가 하고 정도 마세베 남균이 가서지 하고 어디 계속 싫어지 자리 어디 나는 계속 mindfulness 하되 be the present somewhere 되게 계속 싫어지 그냥 아주 이만인가 내가 제 busy 제 even the end of the day 아주 do something do something when they really do something they did something do something 미세 내가 되지 somebody maybe 상으로 제시되지 믹스에 오늘전에 tasted somewhere and 다는시 오늘전에 소화에 되버게 제 모두 비서지 제가 mindfulness 그냥 캐주얼 찍가라서나 be the present somewhere that taste the nerve입니다 때마다 같이 하스게임도 어떻게
So mindfulness is that we need to know what's happening in our minds. We need to understand what is the situation in our minds, and most importantly, we need to know do we have virtuous thoughts in our minds, or do we have unvirtuous thoughts in our minds? And so it's not just something that we do when we have a sudden emotional situation. It's something that we need to always just continually notice what is happening in our mind. And so for this reason that we can say that being mindful is being in the present moment. So normally we spend all day long doing things, working and doing things. And then when we come to the end of the day, we often have a situation where we don't really know what we've actually done in that day. We don't feel like we've done anything. We don't feel like we've tasted the flavor of anything that we have done. And so that is because we haven't been in the present moment. So the feature of mindfulness is that we're being in the present moment and able to experience and taste it.
I have a question for artists and writers. What is your advice or suggestions for how to keep the creative spirit alive?
Creative space and a creative
Live. Wow. Come here. Again. Maybe go back to home. No. Okay. Create life. Pero ngarang penaji samso rumur jigare. Jiduzdane sonar karayungurasan pena ngal ruchimina umayne kashradaji. Lots of dreams, lots of ideas, lots of plans. The imine always the kashradaji obstacles and restrictions. They're stuck there. The Hindustani, Jumutiadigi, Sususemnal Yebeji, Kashrataji, Tipa, Tiatliang as a Bezichigore, Been a create Chechi, Sueshana, and Lapsan, Koran Kashwe, Make it hard, which he down, but from there retire Vinsa, take assembly out the Kashweji, release Richie on touch. And the Hindustani Pena. Teta nyam do pena the mindfulness the devastai or song do pena Koran jumuti with the nyam do susu semte binyang nyam do chi karjure teta jimu tisab the nyam do susu semte binya more colorful somewhere more kaswataji kaswan zidu demar chatyaji in dusane kadu binya the present you have cheche Digital technologies, Jimuda Semtini Binia, Energy Kashwe. Yam don't try to see someone that's juicy.
I often draw and paint, and when I do so, the feeling I have is that I have a lot of hopes, I have a lot of dreams and a lot of plans, but often there are obstacles and things that get in the way, difficulties. And so because of that, when I draw or when I paint, the feeling that I have in my mind is that I'm trying to do something. I'm putting effort into creating something, and then when I'm done, I feel like there's something I can see with my eyes. There's a result that I can show for it. And this gives me some sort of a relief, in a mental relief. And I think that when we are talking about drawing, this is actually really connected with mindfulness, because as we are drawing, then our minds, have to go along with what we're drawing. So the mind, and when the mind and the drawing are going along together, then our minds also become more colorful. Our minds also have more beauty, and so I feel like this brings some peace. And so in this way, I feel like our minds and the drawings need to go together.
I have a question. I think it's more difficult to detach from the beauty of the world. What would be your advice? I think we all know the necessity of detaching ourselves from negative things.
Yeah.
But I think that's also important that we detach from the things that we love and the beautiful things. So what would be your best advice for that?
아주 남기 가서 detachment, non-attachment 들이야 개발 지금 왔다. detachment 수준산에 다시 가서에 가서에 다시 detachment 수준산에 조조디 가서에 맞아. the detachment 수준산에 조디 낭sem당 가서에지 timbu르지 낭섬 게지 가말다 간다 non-attachment is 아주 넘지 차고 매버슬 주산에 지당 아주리아 데 고거스 차고서 수듀버체 소소라 이동할 수순 되베 뭐부터 수듀버체 다들이지리아 군도샤고 되버서나들 고 이내 아주도 교연데 가라잖아 수듀 사베젤이야 아니지 수수수 디기 가르려다지 수수수 칭원을 체제 벤 대와 가와를 치다 가서 다디 틀려 교영 잘부지 타진진을지 다들 좋아하는 거 그래 제가 된대에 타지든 진배 단 집에서 말해 타진진서 말해 티 차시에 대한 아주 동과지 지당 아주 수듀버체 와지 이미냐 타지든 진배지 가서 셴바로디 le tongwa spena ngazu namgyu de tongde yare pena ngazu tingsan zomling tolia bene consumerism
Consumerism.
that de consume ja jorda jala mangbo shiachi that thing one ne good example 가서 de attachment that 가라서나 수수기 남주의 디 배주에 마당체 배디지 미신다 advertise 체하다 미신다게 가르쳐비는 디제스베 교체 에는 아주 심시 마체비 인두산 디제 토안에 땅 아주지 가르쳐베 디 강에 망고시지베 ku유리 교행하루 딱 간다 아주 강에 쉽지 망고 체대요 아래 디리 인두산 디 균세 때는 아주 예 버도 가르쳐에 디갑량 아주 되어바장 아주 거바사 들레바 예와를 체체 non-attachment situation ngaso 강 구요 말에 강 되기요 말에 쓰요 말에 이내야 디갑리야 양 오늘 되바다 거바사들 야와를 체체 오늘 전에 매나 텀매버디 아주 녀버도 고아래 이내 가시 아주 들어가서 지가서 메이크업 저기 수수샘기 건 뇌감기 봐 go samba matobi meba drionde yode jeza go jida attachment ji go yode ne ade nga zu ti gyeng chat ba mebse da 드르지 labja je de
타치진잖아. 탁치.
da extremely
맞아.
타직도 ziba 타직도
맞아. I think we need to here make a distinction between detachment and non-attachment. And so generally, when we talk about detachment, then what usually happens is, actually we need things. We have to want a few things. And when we want things and we're attached to things, we get things and we bring them into ourselves. And we actually need that. That is important for us. But the problem comes when after we've brought things or gotten things toward ourselves, then we hold on to them, we have like an extreme, we hold on them as an extreme too much. We hold on to them too much, and then that is something that creates difficulties for us. And so it is that extreme clinging on to things, or the clinging to things, holding on to things as just being ours, that we then need to eliminate. It's like we talk about in the world, we talk about consumerism these days. We consume things, we want things. And actually, this is actually a really good example of attachment. Because most of the time, the things that we get through consumerism are not things that we actually want. They're things that someone else has or something that an advertisement says we should have, and then we get this feeling in our mind like we need it, and then that creates many difficulties for ourselves. It creates difficulties in our private lives, it creates the environmental difficulties, and so forth. And so we need to distinguish what it is that we need from what we want. Actually, if we think about it, there's not really a whole lot that we actually need in the world, but we have to distinguish what our wants and what our needs are. And the things that are necessary for us, of course, we need those. But then there are some things where we have this feeling of wanting them. It's like that we've made up in our minds. And we think to ourselves, oh, I absolutely have to have it, but that is just a thought. And those are the things that we actually don't really need. And so that is where the problem comes.
Okay. Try it. Yes. Wow. Okay.
Hi, this is a two-part question.
Two-part question.
Why do you think Westerners, a lot of Westerners in this room,
Yeah.
have such a hard time stilling their minds? And how does positive and negative energy relate to mindfulness?
Wow. Ooh. Next lifetime being Western, try. That delay, said that Western Chiboma, this is Zablin Tolia, Chazano, modern, sorry, educated, Chaz Samuel of Benaji, Maumba, Dune du Suche. Kandarchi Kashre, make plans, sort of that Maumba Dune du Suche. Kandarchi, Mambuchiliang, Azuchi. Chadichagua, Mambuchiliang, Azuchi, Kashre. Takadaji, Mangushuji, Takada, Samadanji, Mambu Dune du Suche, Worry, Chegua, the Mambuchi in Dusan. That the Kashre, Azu Semdi, Kandar Kashre, more and more Kashre, Juamaruji, Dang. 다는 신기 에네베 투숨 그 똑바로디 쇼체르 당시에 빈두산디 토안에 에너지 샘디에 가르르다지 초부를 참 다는 시 포지티브 에너지 디즈이나베 카르 토르체 샘 주버찌리안 로토메베 인두산에 엔디 균젠데네 건 누버디지 연구가 많아요. 이 인두산디 균젠데네 아니 미망부지 직디스 가르르 수수 디시 랑조예 수수 가서 수수人 랑조예 소화도 중지대 메디테이션 비자도 지가 알아. 때 이면에 메디테이션 사디 무마이미나 트래디셔널 비자비미나 네벤버도 질 친세 에너지 주변냠을 제사 깨지죠 알아. 이런 디자인도 가라 하고 싶다래. 민망부지들이 뒤주지요만. 조조당 아주지 내가 지기라 수수 내가 지기리야 세미네야 지 가르래 딱 간다 셈디마 쉬워지야 탑시 다 드레지 메디테이션 소마르 드레지 과다 개좀 차디가래 드레 주산에 지담기
It's not just Westerners, it's people all throughout the world who we all have modern educations, and as we get modern educations, we start thinking about the future. We go out to welcome the future and bring the future to ourselves. We're making plans for things, we're preparing for many different things and many different eventualities, and because we're doing this, we're always thinking about bringing the future forward, and we're worrying about this. What happens when we do this is that our minds get a little bit contrived. Our minds get worked up about this, and our thoughts about the past, present, and future get stronger and stronger. And this is what disturbs our minds. And so, whatever positive energy we have, it's at this point that we get separated from that, or that positive energy gets scattered in many different ways. And so, we don't feel like we have that power within our mind. And so for that reason, many people feel like they are losing themselves, and so they go off to meditate. But Traditionally, when people would go to meditate, they'd go to some isolated, remote location and do meditation. But these days, it's very difficult to do that. Most people do not have the time to be able to do that. And so we need to be able to meditate as we do our work. While we're working, at the same time, we need methods to be able to bring peace to our minds. And that is what we mean by meditation. And it's important to recognize that this is what we need.
I think that has already catchy you have shown see energy. Ngazu namgyungi karwe choye nangi chashi ji는 go zuchi. 남경아 당이 쉬는지 우상에 우단데 요래. 제가 이 미세지 말되고 미세체 과스게 우단데 여비 인도사나 엔디토리아 수수 셈디 냠바루 샤지. 디네 고 주체. 에네 신에베 가서 차제르 땅제. 갈리갈리지 수수에 내가 뜻을 qab리입니다. 그 체토입니다. 단 도는지 수수에 셈디 수수 나랑에 주 로세. 안 간다 가서지 relax che tu yarbuji diji ngwa de kinjum shre songdos da diko training gwa de ma do ji tuju ru khashi jing nan duda ru khashi jing nan lu che an nam yu ma che de na isha pen tong ma de songdos.
And so the most important thing is that we need to make this a part of our lives. For example, when we have difficulties or encounter a problem, then we're still breathing. We've got breath is always with us, and so if we can just bring ourselves and so we can bring our minds to rest equally with our breath, then at that point, then it starts out small, but it'll get stronger and stronger. It'll get better and better. And then if we are able to do this while we work, then that will be make it so that it'll feel like our minds are then returning home and we'll be able to relax. But it's important to remember we have to have training to do this. This is not something that we can do in a short time. It's not something we can practice for a week and then it'll happen. If we think it's like that, then it will not help.
How can one find contentment within oneself in that not worrying about what others think about us?
Oh. Okay. Did the cousins have the Rojiro?
Some shinky tones of some around it.
저다 미생 통주 미생 통주랑 아주 도난 최고야를 셔야돼. 이미는 그도 있는 미생 통주 수수기 통주디 개체 부분지 미생다 통주 경간 자체를 조성해 가라 하버시. 제가 가상만 예지라와 총소. 배는 아주 배는 compassion, like kindness, but take care to servi입니다. 같이 두자 참참 we get the responders, 야우시라 도구 말았어. 데 뭐도 걸려야 참참 아주 참참직 롭한벤 내주라고 야나? 야 참참 아주 양디 가서 배는지 수수기 compassion들 value를 시다메 되버려 동. There's some day 지쇼지네 드그멘도 성도스 가서 비즈니스도 비즈니스도 상에 바직 잘하지 직 아니 그 수대 봐 근데 좀 무슨 인 비즈니스 디코라 요하지요 말 근데 유산의 디균센데네 아주 최체사의 변하지 가수에 가서 뒤쇼네 제베 부유지 모티브는 시사 그 요번에 부디 지금 remote TV나 코랑기 낭올이야 간다 beautiful 그 충분히나 디 코랑의 containment스네 다도 코랑이야 디기를 제가 알아 제가 디과데 시작해 좀 사디 알았어 녜래 소술이야 디기테 투메나 텐트베기 냠네 디기 미신달의 디기테가 가라 하고 시작했어 인주산에 안에 챔피언 주야데 수수 장된 somewhere 장래야 냠래암 카라칸섬지 연된 가서에 뉴버드 지에베 토안에 아니 신래야 펜버 주고야 빌리지마도 말 지시해야 되면 봐
The way other people look at us is, of course, something that we need to consider. But what is more important than the way other people?
Balance, chawurs, mishinda tongju de susu tongju. Bena pangbu ni tsemar songsa ju. Balance.
What is more important than the way other people think of us is the way we think of ourselves. We need to have a balance between the way we think of ourselves and the way other people think of ourselves. We have a saying that goes, of the two witnesses or the two judges, hold the principal one, which means that holding your own view is the most important one. And so in this way, of course, we do need to take care of things. But I was mentioning this the other day. When we are compassionate to other people, sometimes we try to be compassionate, we try to do something good for other people, and we do something to try to help them, but then the response is not so good. And we are a little bit disappointed, and we feel like, we tried to be compassionate, and there is no response to that. And if we think about it from one perspective, this way of being compassionate is maybe not the best. It's like doing business. When you do a business, then you've got a service that you give to other people, and they give you something in return. And if you don't have that, then your business is going to go bankrupt. But Dharma or practice is not like that. Dharma, it's like when a child draws a drawing. A child draws a drawing, they draw something that they like and find beautiful, and this gives the child satisfaction within him or herself. And so that's what we need it to be like. It's important for it to be like that. First of all, we have to have happiness for ourselves. Before we're able to bring other people happiness, we need to be happy ourselves. And so in order to be able to help others, we need to we need to do things for our own sake. We need to practice for ourselves. We need to have the qualities or that capacity within ourselves, and then only then will we be able to do it.
Better. Okay, thank you.
So one of the things when we talk about mindfulness that came up in this year's theme is to ask His Holiness to talk about mindfulness as an artist, as a writer, as a poet, how is bringing mindfulness to that in any way enhanced or different, or just to reflect on that, and then everything else.
I think it's my rubbish. The English is not so good, but I'm trying to speak some English. What do you think? Good? Good. Where's the English teacher? There's somewhere, yeah. Who somewhere there? Oh yeah. I think mindfulness, everybody knows maybe later, everybody heard this, mindfulness, everybody. But mindfulness is not so easy. It's kind of, because sometimes I have this feeling, because I'm my daily schedule is quite fixed and quite busy. I need to meet different people, have different background. Some of them is not really Buddhist or Buddhist followers. They are, but they want to curious, you want to ask me some questions, or ask, maybe I can give them some sort of new idea or something that they think they will change. And also, it's I think better Tibetan, okay. And then I see Mrs. Sam Nanolia energy Kashwebra. She Lamar we get Minchapur a spiritual leader. Minchapur Jebins are Tiguns and Toane and Kandachi Koran Kashwe. Kashi Samdi Nanolevish, that Chamo of this Labeji Tushana. And the Baji 동해 망부지 마 시도에 되게 believe 지가래. 제가 이 주제다 for me it's a kind of big pressure somewhere challenge. Did chat the artist.
Also, people think that because I have the title of being a lama and the title of being a spiritual leader, this big title, then people think that they're going to come and see me and then without really doing anything, that something is going to happen to them. They'll think that I'll be able to lay my hands on them and take away all of their suffering. And so for that reason, I feel like there's a lot of pressure and a lot of challenge.
나 이미 내가 구수에 가르친 거 말했었는 거나 디 가르에 디 leadership 가르에 not just spiritual 다나신 가르에 지속하기 leadership 지미인자 pressure 가져야 돼 challenge 가져야 돼 디시라신 거 말은 제가 간다야 주체 주산에 디 나로리아 아니 가르에 조조디 가르에다 강해를 좀 먹고 싶어요. 근데 그러면 충충급네. 당기 쉬브네시 로듀응급이야. 안 까마버 체제 문진체. 엔티네지 소스 파마다 카체. 디 소스 파유다 카체 고변 나눠야 돼지. 민고 마시든지 냠도지 가르에. 딱 간다. 두스 소화르게 두스에 되어야지. 안 간다데 드리 주산 드리지기 내다르 쉐비나 다다봐도 가르쳐다지 킵 가르쳐 단동이네 다지 심슈 마차브스나 장도 단 드리스 무티 드로트야르디 크리에이션 이르디 가르쳐잖아 조조다 아섬리아지 참니지서 말해 수수인제다 랭디 수수 랭겐의 opportunity somewhere 고급으로 지면은 무지 체제 안에 내 돈에 다 간다 셴이야 안에 페버드야 선한다도 셴게 자와지에 될이야 수수 자심을 지지 이 군선 때네 모두 로데아 차디가 인도스탄에 이게 카르통 거였으나 미신다리아 자와 자다 미신다기 가르에 현대 쿠르드 키아가 누버디 랍신지 버지당 티 가르에 수수기 셴펜 주투버 전도 마스베 수수 게르기 강에당지 셈기 다 양의 망부를 상투야를 이제 누버에 버지 통도스
But what the people who come to see me don't know is they don't know how much challenge and how much pressure there is to being a spiritual leader, how many challenges there are to being a leader in society. So the main thing is there are a lot of difficulties, like as I was saying a little while ago. When I was young, at the age of 7, I was separated from my parents. I was identified as the Karmapa. I was separated from my parents and separated from my homeland and brought to a monastery surrounded by people I didn't know. And I had this feeling of being surrounded by people I didn't know. And yet still I feel like the power of my mind has not been used up. I feel like I'm still able to continue to be able to do this. And the reason for this is love and compassion. It's like if we recognize that our responsibilities are also an opportunity, then when then I feel like we can recognize that benefiting other people, or perhaps fulfilling other people's hopes, is actually a chance for ourselves. And so I think that we have this actually really vast capacity to be able to be loving towards other people and to be able to bear the burden for other people. And so I think when we do this, that it's not just something where we then accomplish something for others' sake, but we also are able to then develop the power to do something for our own sake, to dispel our own difficulties and problems.
Well, that's why I'm not the person that some people think, it's a Kamapa, sort of 900 years. I'm not 900 years old, but this history, Kamapas, the first Kamapas is born at 900 years ago. That means it's, now it's 17. That means it's this, the one person have 900 years old tradition or history, but then some people think, I'm kind of Buddha or kind of God, no feeling, no sort of happy or sad, just there, ready to give what you want, Not some people, sometimes lots of people they're not really take care what my feeling. But that is okay. Sometimes something like today, we can sit together, kind of sort of enjoy together. These sort of things that I want, because when I was 14 years old, that time I make the decision to leave my country and to escape from Tibet to come to India. This is for me, it's a kind of big decision. I'm not sure. Maybe on the way, maybe we can't make it. Maybe I need to go to jail, or I will die on the way. I'm not sure. But why I need to make that decision, that I think it's a kind of sort of, I want to do something that, even though 차산으로 뉴베리 차산 요아마르데 이미네야 간다지 accept 소소이기 랭겐데 accept 제제 샤르 네 뉴스안 뺀당 아주디 딘데야 냠도 좀지 가버치야를 든데 충분해 가버치야 충분히 딘데 통연 뉴스안 애니 신에지 소소이기 가르다 오마베 타주여를 제베디 엔직도와 삼선으로지 또 노민도와 삼선으로지 pena dini industana pena ngarang ge ngene samta bi mine dije occasion of the ngarang ge ngel ya karshweta ji 중대 첨부르지 그래서나 ngarang 타주 첨부르 dije che 료동 첨부르 dije che and the che bi industana de lesi pena tan ding azu de zomya de nga phensu de lemena yo ame bi bi insang di gyunze de ne ane karshwe and the yoni do stane industana
So I'm not able to do everything, but at least I can accept my responsibility. It's like when we all get together here, I'm so delighted to be able to get together with you. And the reason I'm so joyful about this is that I feel now as if the commitment I made in the past was not a mistake. I feel like I did not, everything is working out all right. And so when I have occasions such as this one, I feel like taking on this great responsibility and really dedicating myself to it and putting myself into it is something that really has borne fruit. And I feel like here we're all able to gather together here and do this today. And if I had not come from Tibet, then we wouldn't be able to.
The responsibility is over with that. Ginkur somebody. Anzulia, when it's Chenia, Takashre, Twenty Channel Anzulia, Gainting Anzul Yondi Yare. Yimbi Nang Azulia, Tadaji, Nizi Nubam, Chikde Kashre. Chamzi Nuber, which may be in Dusan, they Azum gain the Kurtu Yamane, Kurpu Yamane, the Indusane, Chamzidi, Chamzi Nuber Chumbi, and Shine, Azu. Susu Randia TV missions somewhere. Missions and mission job to Achitan, gain course server which you want to get. The Indusane, in Zombling Tolia, Kashweta, Mimanguchi, Gamin Gomer, which you have in that Mik is Tibomata. Gamin Gomer, that is Simjan among we have Chitan, Dana Singi, Nizu, 강에 체외 니주 망고지 마주 구니 다디 니주 세알이야 구니 대여 인주산에 디균세 때네 나중에 봐도 아니 니지 누바다 참지 누보 공배도 땅과디 개침부르지 자디가 아래 베랑아랑기 미지나로리 비냐 당부 베랑아랑 부춘준 걸이야 최시 가야 말에 베랑 지가만 받체사도 밀람나나 군유야 말에 Hop the Kalia and the Chabre, Gangalo Castre. Cheshi Suene, Suesha Kayamare, Hop the Cal de Chabre. Sosuena de accept the chase, the Kokablu Embassy. Sosu Kari means Sadi, Nizukare, Yimina, the Kokablu Imberich Museum Chay and Dusane, and Shine Castre. Sosu Misi Imbeds in Gare, the Kurtuyak. Some rich hombre, the use that teachers and some to you get some easy shooting years.
So all of us in this world depend upon each other. We're mutually dependent. Our pains and happinesses all depend upon each other. And so since we actually are all dependent upon each other, then we all have this responsibility. And this is a purpose that we all have. And I think that we all have this purpose, but because we often lack the capacity of our compassion, or we don't have the power of such great love and affection, that we feel like we are unable to do it, and we don't dare to do it. We don't dare to take this responsibility upon ourselves. But actually, this is that the power of loving compassion it's a responsibility that we need to take upon ourselves to be able to help ourselves. And it's something we need for the world, for all of the people in the world. Actually, not just for all of the people, for all of the sentient beings in the world. They are waiting for us to do something about the difficult situations that they find themselves. They're waiting for us to do something to remove their difficulties, and so they're waiting for us to increase the potential or the power of our love, the power of our affections and compassion. When I was little, I had no plans. I'm going to be the Karmapa and do this. I never even dreamed of any such thing. And it's not like all of a sudden I came with a plan, I'm going to do this. But I recognized that I had an opportunity. I accepted that there was an opportunity. So what I actually am is a different question, but I recognized that I had this opportunity. And I feel like this is a responsibility that all of us humans have, and that we all have the ability to take upon ourselves.
This is going back to sort of your experience with poetry and playwriting. What do you think is the most important thing to think about when you're sort of looking for inspiration for a work in any kind of artistic medium?
가서 사제한 가서 네 솜제라 가이나 가서 데 인스피레이션 셀 안에 개치시 섬단당 개치시 가이나스
개치슈디 베나 가수디 가수에지 베나 내는 유베르 좀을 게두스타네 에너지 가수 엄마 담보 좀 예배 걸리야 알아야지 매매루루르지 다 가수다지 셈나 랍산랍산 대네 지금 매매루루시 제마야 되게 가수지 obstacle 차체 제마 배 삼을 쉬지 당하고 공예지 가수에 쥐네 바 소수 쥐매 삼을 쉬지 당하고 공예 차리고 제사 얘는 규제 아티스트 도라 삼로 간다 거랬으나 이지 민지 가수에 삼로 쉬지 당하지 가주네 제버지당 아니 야나 가주네 가수에지 배 야부를 쇠세 뢰배 쥐네 야부 소가 아마이바 약셔데 가라서나 소수기 나버도 당부세는 장도 야나 쥐마 메이베 지 로리아 가르차버디 파 가지지 된투베입니다 안 대주지기 안 아티스트 어디 가주에지 대주지기 어디 세르라지 그래서다지 가주에서나 조디 아티스트 사디 가다지 소수 셈기 차나로디 가지지 비에세야 된투베지당 안 대야 미망부지 가지지 가주에다지 하코이비네 대주지기 인트레스트 차 투야로 저들이 인주산 디균제 때네 아주 예바로도 쥐마 모임베 소수기 셈기 차나서는 자도 셈기 정신서는 자도 디 컨디스 파트용고 옆티 조차 마도베 참상 아주 쥐에네 지 가서 소주 때문에 쉽지 다 가서 나바 잡으러 써야지 직구를 쉬게 되면 뭐야 디 난데야 디 천자 된게 정신 대야 아니 소수기 마주에 안에 컨디스 된투미사데 개체로 저거면서 정도스
When I'm writing, when I first started writing, things would just spontaneously pour out. It's like I didn't have to do it. They just, without any effort, they would naturally pour forth. But later it became more difficult, and I had to think more. I had to do more, and it became more contrived and more forced. And usually when I end up writing something, it's like for some occasion or something that I have to do it. But I want to do something good. And so what I usually think is that it's like the first thought is the best thought. So what I try to do is I try to show what it is that appears in my mind and to show what it is. And I think that is what an artist tries to do. It's the nature of what an artist is trying. When you do that, then the nature of the art becomes clear. And so I think when an artist is able to clearly demonstrate what's present in their mind or make people understand what they're thinking about, then when that happens, I think in order for that to happen, we need to have an uncontrived, unforced ability to show just whatever it is that occurs in our minds, or you could also say the nature of our minds. And so for that reason, it's not like we need to force something or make something up or to create something solid. Instead, we need to look at what we're actually trying to show, what we're trying to illustrate, and then try to show that in an uncontrived manner.
I did have the opportunity to borrow your book before I found it on sale in the lobby, and I devoured the center part where you were talking about what we need to do personally. You mentioned that you had asked the monks and nuns to become vegetarian, and the connections to consumerism and food justice, and I see a strong connection between all of these things. And I'm wondering if you might want to comment on that at all.
Kama kashi na tsama shetu as kemindo de yimina nge kusulia kasre rewa tengo adi so de kasre da monks and nuns chibo member chida ta followers so man betachi adi ji kama be mindu chebe yinza ti gyuze de ne ji de kama kamsang gi chugyu misolia rewa tembre the Tonga Gimsen to Karasana and Karasana Bena but Simjin to Rumangushi, Nazu, Casa Jibu Chedo and Dungan de Giva, Naju Yan de Givici. Cesa, the question de Kuzulia, Nazuna Shingi Benedict Kazriti, Toy, Mesada, get a share to Mesada Maba. Question the Kuzuliata, Didug Soa, you may say, you mean Jusane, and Azugi Kuzu Didulia, the Samatan share. The Susugi Kasreji, Shalia, Sebe Wangi, Simjation, Susugi, Ji, Yana, the Duma Susanesi, Rangi Gibu Chedo, and Simjation, Najutonadi, and the Dikason Drama Shavu down. The Kasre Chambuman Baji, Nizu Chadi in Jusana, and Azu, never to the Kasretelia. Some good language, Salabar don Azuji, Tivasimbu, Nalola, Simjetam Japada Mata, Windu share Sunguare, the Indusane, and a Padame Shakaris, the Padamen Dushi Sungi Sungiati, Sharp Sadiadi, and a Azuji Kasre. Jigbian Rotan, Jumzen Rotan Tone, the Tungu of the Indusane, as we ever the Samtang Gotos, Labardo, Energy, Shasadi, Kud and Java on the Gore, Tahana Shingi, Subject, that 100 Java on the Gore, Penang Arando Jimbin, much Jungalia, Shasa, Gaustaye, Shamusha Sore, this get out of you something here, Yimbiang, and the cheese to Kashua, Sangmegi inspires Chache to Dang, Susu Imbiang, and the Kadara Kashwe Penang Archujunga Dusane, Losum Shikalia, Mazunalia, Simjin de Se, Dusane, the Dusangalia, Kusuji Captunas, but Torch Shidai Che, the Dusane, and the Be Niji, Tor Shidai on the year. United you get Chetu Yamare, Jazang around law, Chamber Chave Jelia, and Rijigi Kashwe. Sosu and Tazu with the Chetu in Mina, and Sosu in Mina, Chunjung Gauki, that Jawasan and Rado, Melamsan and Rado, the Drutu Bajidan, and the Simjin to Drutu in Mina, don't damn pebbles to see on Sarasamuch. And the Lujan, Junzam, which you have in Dusan, I was another Chetu as came in the
It's too much to say in just a few moments, but basically, when I expressed my hope for the Kaju monks and nuns, actually it wasn't just for the monks and nuns. Because I have the title of Karmapa, then I'm able to place my hopes or put my hopes on all of the followers of the Karma Kamsang lineage, and so for that reason, I have made this request and for my followers, and so often when we there are many sentient beings who are killed solely for a meat, and they experience a lot of suffering and torments in this. And it's not a question of how, whether they're sensate or insensate, whether or whether they're intelligent or not. The question is whether they experience pain and pleasure or not. And if we think about that, then when we slaughter other sentient beings for our own, to be able to eat their flesh, then it's like actually we're slaughtering an aspect of ourselves, since we're all dependent upon one another. And so when we think about it in that respect, then it is not okay for us to do this. It's not an honest and straight or upright way to do this. And so for that reason, I have been encouraging people to be vegetarian. In particular, as Mahayana Buddhists, in Mahayana Buddhism, we need to think of all sentient beings as being our parents. And it wouldn't be logical for us to eat our parents' flesh and blood. So while we're thinking of these sentient beings as being our parents, at the same time eating their flesh, then this just doesn't work logically. It doesn't make any sense from this perspective. And it's also the issue of eating meat is intimately connected with the environment. Actually, when I was little, I ate a lot of meat, and I was well known as a voracious carnivore. But then later, I thought about this, and I realized that it could be inspiring for other people. What I really thought about was when I was 3 or 4 years old. Of course, I was a nomad, and so we occasionally had to slaughter animals in order to eat their flesh. And when that happened, I felt such strong compassion. I wanted to be able to protect those beings and save those beings, but I was too little, and I was unable to do anything. Now I'm older, and I am able to do something. And so I would like to be able to fulfill that hope or that aspiration that I made when I was little, and to be able to do something to benefit all of these beings. And so there are many different reasons for encouraging vegetarianism. There's not really time to speak about all of them right now.
What can one do to de-stress and find inner peace within oneself, to quiet one mind and to just relax, de-stress?
The example Bena jigo saurji kashba bena jalan jigo saurji melong dunia jalan jigo saurji shashavina ina diki sunye rubdi pinan toyon gordi imbine ku jigo di melong nan ligi amane tena sing asu sem nalo liya ane kashba ni sudi hako ni sudi ngosebji ina di ni sudi pressure rubji manebcha dilaya asu duni samda de keshim rubji mero songdos duni samda du san ngone ngobo rawan wa phe chi ngana ji chakbuji phe yo maras dogdoji gyuye mangboji dene yebe industane ngobo chakbuji mebe insan de gyunsen dene and pressure sad ngone ne phe khashre athe rubji phe chakbuji phe yo maras ni industane de gyunsen de directone and go khashbada rengxinlia samdang de distress no somro de chungbe khadolia ti ngo de kyangche ti ngo le ba sem nyambar shayum du sane de du sa rengxin gi quran khashbada ji quran dissolve no chandra ji yongor de du sane ti kablia rengxinlia samdong de kechum rjmedo song number lia number le rengxin samdong de kechum rjmedo.
The example I usually give for this is that when you take something heavy and weighty and you put it in front of a mirror, the reflection, there is the reflection that shows in the mirror, but that reflection has absolutely none of the weight of the thing that is reflected. And so it's the same. If we think in our minds, we realize that if we realize that there's the situation that's outside of that, but the weight does not have to come inside of our mind. And so for this, we need to think about emptiness. It's important to think about emptiness. And when we say emptiness, what this means is that things are not as we usually think, some solid, singular, solid, hard thing. Actually, there are many different causes and conditions that come together. It's not some single solid thing. And so when we experience pressure, we might think that it's actually the solid thing that is bearing down upon us. But if we actually think about the nature of it, then it reduces the stress. There isn't anything solid about it. And so we think about that when the stressful situation happens. And if we can sort of maintain that nurture and maintain that nature and rest our minds within it, then that stress will just naturally dissolve. And so it's important for us to think about the nature. It's more important to think about the nature of how things are than how they appear.
What is our proper relationship to plants and animals, and who speaks for them?
Animals, the plants, the living system, living chala chadi ore. Seso sanadadu, sone renshi debi over chadi ore. Three dusane as hanglo, arazo imbinea, and part of nature. Imbineta also draw medina, part of nature, chadi or imbinea as Germany, no longer part of nature. Those in the Chajudi, no longer part of nature to study or did this are so the any Kashurada. Don't get this yet to Kanash Lauta. Ben the different traditions, some of the Ben Pearl of Chasa Yimina. Energy been a rich emborgy, the courage of in the day answer Kashuri. Tell it far of Jigna or Sarabata, sing the chamber Jevi, even tell a lot of nay or Sarabata, and it should Sambo Cherry Jevi, tell a lot of nay or Sarab. Tindigi Kashri, Muziru Chigare. Kuzu Sugun Datan the Karasana, the Hana Jijik, Kuzu Takashri, source of living source, chamber in the Jitan, Tanashi Kuzu di Kashri, Mizina long going up Chigavich. Takandar. Kuzu di za chenbu yinba ji da ke chenbu yinba gi nguzin di da sab shita yore. Dili di gyunze tene da di cho jin debi na da ridan cha da sanglo ji la re si du zane mong de ru cha de yore de ne cho jin debi yinbi na kuzu gi ne one natural den deba sabo shibi ji yebe ji dang da na ji kuzu understand proper understanding ji yebe ji di gyunze tene kuzu gi Kuyudang Nyam Kuyu the Tumbe Choa Galia and Narugu Mizu Kabashta Yudevici. They don't go out of some of those. The name to San Tiguns and then Marazu in the ancient traditions and another wisdoms and another Zulia, Lobjon Cheche, Country Cheche, and natural de Zidu damage in Vegeta, catch and Bajimba. As a source, Jimba. As a Tadaji Nature Ton, Su Lead, Ganga some Tamadobe, Kuzu Tadabadon, as well Tebatilla, appreciate Chemem, as you could do in a Kashuri, Dicking in Lugita, Karin, Doyando Mindotazi Madobe, Monetane Kuzu, as well Cargendo, or this some Dadi, Nunchavi, Shadiga, the Indusan. The name do Tigun and then answering about to energy ancient cultural wisdom tradition, the Zulia, Lobjon Chase here. Don't check what I catch on those.
Animals and plants are all living beings. They're living creatures. So it's like you could say they have a nature that is alive. And we human beings are also part of this. We're part of this, but because our way of life has become artificial, we sometimes think of ourselves as no longer being part of a nature. But if we think about different traditions, for example, like with Tibet, when we see a mountain, like a snow-covered mountain, we say, a god lives there. We see a tree and we say a god or a goddess lives there. A river, we say a god or a goddess lives there. And then we have this, it becomes a part of our traditional way of life that we respect this, and we think of this god or goddess as being a source of our life, and then we think that we need to protect this, protecting it. This becomes our way of life. We consider this to be something sacred and something important. So if we think about this from one perspective, it might seem like it is just blind faith or superstition. If we look at it from another way, then it's actually recognizing the connections that we have with nature, and it's having a proper understanding of our relationship with nature. And so for that reason, I think that one of the main things we need to do to be able to live in harmony with nature as people is that we need to see how is it that the ancient peoples have done this. We need to learn more about the... It's like these ancient people ancient peoples have a way to be able to have conversations with nature and communicate with nature. And so we need to respect these ancient wisdom traditions. We need to learn more about the ancient wisdom traditions so that we will be able to understand or see that beauty and see the importance of nature. When we approach nature, generally we think of it only as something that we take from. We take these resources from nature, and we don't appreciate what it is that we are taking it from. All we are doing is taking from the nature and seeing what it is that we can get out of the environment. And so I think that for that reason, it is important for us to learn more about the ancient wisdom traditions.
ngadi da jigdong gi geshu chenga lo le and dawa chube der jugule amashi the official Queen of England na shi chan official birthday jig da real birthday jig ni cha so re or real birthday de da dawa chube der jugule le ya ge che nge khashur gesa di 그 샤쇼 롱고 구교하시래. 그게 요마를 가서 모든 유럽 사회기 에네 가서 급디주산 유럽 사회 이야기 가가 요마. 오늘 가서 다시 취재 다시 요마. 답 가서 디 신다 파시는 지리디 줘야 로를 팅지 지리를 가셔야지 기용지 아주 대 참가게 교대하를 쉬. 이 주산에 딱 간다 remote place 좀 제. 제가 든데스 가서 초진의 remote 봐. 안다는 신기 natural 의 시합에 타니우지 대학에 대기업의 인두산에 에네 가서 다지 나르기 벽에 엔다가다 소화 닝버지 구유다 튜베지 소화 로스 닝버로 텔리아 가서 파자 냠뇽사 고거로 준비 총벌에 드린자 디규진 된다지 구유 토리아 게시아데 가스 가서지 가서다지 artificial understanding which may be che this is 총중 둘이야 오늘 저녁에 ane kuyu ranjung kuyu ta tanya bache ranjung kuyu de nyamdo ane choagia 고급 축총비 인두산에 디 바자 상부제비 인자 디기 더블테네 총벌에 삼정이스 안 다나싱 알아게 발라다 말아서 시다 가서 초진의 남부르체 디나는 지당 simple and 유치버스 개요 말은 the simple family 루체 이미냐 가서다지 very warm summer family 초기 된 데에 김사할아버지 은 참진 된 데에 김사할아버지 레스라는 저기 할아버지 도스래 간다량 아 춘중 아 깨베 겁이야 아니 가서다 아디 가서 auspicious 가서 다얌전전에 지 충분해서 제가 충뒤는지 교란지 레스 할아버지 미세지 레스 할아버지 기지요래 인 미세 가르인 수지시야요 다지 지 맨로스다 라마도 두고도 지 맨로스 할아버지 충분해 이미네 가르인들 시야토야스게요 말봐 리두산게 아발라기 그들이 라마자 아침부터 그들이 전에 남산지 녀고르지 특히 nga karine sar ki tere yeminya lo dün ba tele ya len chungwa mare cheza ji kusu samsam ji disappointed the chayu sare lo dün ga suddenly samarbe anda kama kaso tambungele ya search group le en kusu de abadam ki chi en jema yang ga le yun dus an kyon kama baresla nga ju phayule kama ba jidang traditionally nga ju ji lama za chi Quran 가서에 개심을 쓰대야 제자 까마버스도 시비직베게 야베 가서 사도 차디에서 안 홉디칼이야 교랑 대바치서 교랑 부데레스 라비드스타는 미상올로지 쇼크를 차지 가서 할레브르 차르 안에 딜로 둥이네라 다로 둥이가네 니한테질라
I was born in 1985 on the 19th of June. Actually, I'm kind of like the Queen of England. I've got my real birthday and the official birthday. The real birthday is on the 19th of June. And the place I was born was in eastern Tibet, a very, very remote location. There wasn't any modern or contemporary development at all. There were no machines at all, no technology. It's like, forget about machines. Like if someone would come bringing candy, they'd only come once or twice a year, and someone would come with candy, and we'd run after them in a crowd trying to get 1 or 2 candies per year. And so this is this very remote location where I grew up. And because it was such a remote area, it was very close to nature, and it was very and we also lived the ancient Tibetan way of life, the old traditional ways, a way of leading our life that really is very harmonious with the environment. And so it made a real impression upon me. I had a taste or an experience of this traditional way of life. And I feel like this a real experience of the traditional livelihood. And so I think it's because of this that I have had such an interest in the environment. It's not because it's an artificial thing. It's like I've had this experience that it comes out of. My parents were Buddhist, and they were not a wealthy family, very simple livelihood. So it was a simple family, but a very warm home, a very warm household, a loving household that I grew up in. So when I was born, there are all sorts of auspicious or miraculous signs that happened, and so everyone said, "Oh." So there were, the sound of conches blowing and various other signs that happened, and so everyone said, "Oh, you must be the reincarnation. This must be the reincarnation of some big Lama. He must be someone special. This is a special child." And so my parents, they thought this has to be reincarnation of someone. So every time they had a chance, they'd bring me to some important Lama, whatever important Lama they could, say, "Who is my son?" And no one was ever able to tell them. And so up until the age of 7, they were actually very disappointed about this. Then when I was 7 years old, the search party came looking for the Karmapa. And they first came and they asked a bunch of questions. They went away. Then they came back and they said, "Your son is the Karmapa." Now, actually, the area that I was from is one where we considered the Karmapa to be the most important, the Lama whom we had the greatest faith, like a god. And all of a sudden they were told, "Your son is the reincarnation of the person in whom you have such faith." And so it's a real shock for everyone. And so this happened when I was 7 years old.
Did you say, 저 까마버레스래 미상매지 남겨도 미라지 상물로지 루브르도지 가서 유아를 태지 상물로지 구구심쇼로지 괜찮아 마수 남겨 참사 제모지도사 부드 제모지도사네 지가 지 라마 인도도지 간데 데 도르지 간데 신다도지 셉지리 인도도지 마스데데 제모지아르 저봐 디소르제 상물로 다는 미겜바 상물로 제모쟁이를 차지 데 녜지 차지 디두사는 예사면 다 까마바차는 까마바사다 가는 하고 말에 예서 까마바차나 파지 이부르지 이게 제모자 망보르 이게 제모쟁게 조금 망보르 이게 사마르 지내를 차서 마도베 신당에 삼게 당신 거 말아 봐. 따이네 아주 배배로 소리야. 아니 그 주구차서 되사네. 안다베 디코라티 코라 다고 geb체. 디 파마라게 주도메체. 디 치겔 엑셉션을 갈아갑시다디. 베데디 가르쳐 가르치네 또 고수 다고 geb다. 가르쳐 베데 가르쳐다. 부드 파지 지 가르쳐에 종샤베 소치에다 하나. 디 가리나 뒤에 고마들 중앙시 없었지. 아니 제자는 로디운가리아 파마다 카테 아니 고베나로리아 니만 니숨도 저러다 니만 니숨도 치지. 이제 다른 것들은 로뉴 어레다 로뉴면서 어레 아니 고베나는 침브제 안 고베나를 스두사네 아니 시라기 가르에 아니 도슬라샤 다 도루 등르다.
So at that time, when they said that when they said, "You're the Karmapa," I didn't really know what it meant, but all of a sudden everyone changed. Everyone started really respecting me and bowing to me and being very respectful to me. And I didn't, like when I was a little kid, sometimes we'd play and I'd pretend I'm a llama and I'd sit on a rock and I'd make all of my friends, be my servants and my attendants. And then all of a sudden, all of the attendants were playing pretend along with them. It was playing this game at the same time.
All the old men.
All the older people.
Older people.
Old people were doing this as
become
well.
like big game, Everybody plays this game.
So I really had no idea. I didn't understand what being the Karmapa meant. I thought maybe being the Karmapa is going to be fun. Maybe I'll get lots of toys and there'll be lots of kids to play with. And I really didn't know to think any other way. But when you are recognized as a tulku or reincarnate lama, tulku in Tibetan, when you're recognized as one of these, then immediately the monastery takes control of you. Your parents no longer have any connection. They no longer have any responsibility or ability to function. This is something that is probably difficult for foreigners to understand. It's as if, once I was recognized as a tulku, then it's like I was sold to the monastery. And so at the age of 7, I was separated from my parents and from my homeland, and I was brought to the monastery, which is several days away. It was farther than I'd ever been before.
Alright. That's educated, educated. The lovely dinner she omanda. Count someone again, so she had someone that putting them and zoom dance show. Also, the traditional Gangalobe Naporche, Tomanaporche. And then Kashua the and Thompson. Calling you Mr. Amazena, and it's something you have to say it. Don't do it. The other Gagala Cheta today says that those says training of change to Siomre. And then the Mamusha Moche, Lojushi Golia, Yagariombre. Did you Lojushi, as we make us in Yam to Siombre? Did you sign it? And the country is somewhat started. Teaches any Carson, that public figure which had the art, and the Jana Shungi, Carson, Tonachim sister which had the art, and Peve Mitsam Manchi and washing group. The Rangers are also paid in Hajang and Yangatsabuchi. Mazu Gazi, Carson, Pertugur Sambegi, the Carson. Carson, you see, it's not Yamanta. I need to do some course of Lavachon, Mabe Colia. 아가도 다 야갈 봐 하고네 다 고마 가시면 야면 다 리도 버스다 주소는 리도 버스다 로마토네 리도 버스 가르사나베 디 at least 타나베 카 뜬서럽다 다 만어시 만어로 인자 아니 바지 저기 알았어 다 드리시야 중벌에 간다 니만 doing it that yes 나로래네 야래 안죠 안데 상월로지 가서 아 디두산에 야나 다가다 야래 안죠 하시는 간다 가서도 좀래 디두스 다다 디네 마제 안에다 그 스토어 망고 얼다데 시마스 개민도 안드린데 레브레 안데 디두산에 ane kaushachumus ane journey ru jimta
And so in the monastery, I was educated, but there wasn't any school. It's, over here, you all have classes and teachers. You get together, you play games, you do some class, you learn, and you all get together and have fun doing it. But in Tibet, it wasn't like that. It was a traditional education, and it was mainly people scowling at me. And sometimes when I wouldn't listen to what people would say, then they would scold me, or even they'd spank or beat me. And so that was the training that I received. It's not necessary to say too much more about that, but at the age of 14, I came to India. There were a few of us who came together, and we had to come in secret because I was a public figure. The Chinese government took a lot of interest in me. Everyone in Tibet would recognize me, and so it was not at all clear that we would be able to escape, and we did not at all have any confidence that we would be able to escape. And I remember saying that even if we can't go, at least if we just turn in the right direction and go, we'll have the confidence that at least we tried to go in the right direction, and that it should be enough. So it took 7 or 8 days. It was 8 days that we reached India in 8 days, and then since then there are many stories that have happened, but it's not necessary to go through all of them. I'd just like to say that I'm really happy to be able to come here this afternoon.
Thank you.
And so that is my journey.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing part of your journey with us. We are very, very fortunate, and we are deeply appreciative of your time and care for our community and everyone here. It certainly motivates all of us, and we hope that motivation will stay with us at least until your next visit, when you can give us another boost.
Yeah. Every time I want to come to here, spend some time, maybe a little bit studying.
Yes.
But no time.
You were going to come and meet children to practice English, but then you learned English without our help. So we hope we can help a little bit with some of the science and just in everything, just to be in your presence and to share. And it's just a wonderful sharing and community, and everybody who's here, it's just so thrilling and heartwarming that everyone has taken the time to avail of this precious gift of sharing together. And thank you, and thank David.
Yeah, definitely.
And thank all of His Holiness's staff and security, and all of these people who see that he gets around safely and securely for all of us. As my mom said, take care of yourself, you're important to us all. Right? Yeah. Okay, thank you. So.